everyone, welcome back to the All Things EarthCache channel, still the only YouTube channel to focus solely on Earth caches. The goal here is to explore locations that contain Earth caches and to pass along some Earth caching tips and tricks along the way. So if you like that sort of stuff, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. This is the last of 3 videos about how to write an Earth cache. You're nearly there. If you haven't already watched the first 2, I really recommend doing that before watching this one. Each video is going to build on the one previous. The goal of this video is to finish your journey and get that first Earth cache published. Today, we're going to cover research and writing, developing logging tasks, submission, and maintenance. After this video, you should be all set and ready to go. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below in the comments section or simply reach out to me. Are you ready to go? Let's do this. So the research and development of a new Earth cache can be the fun part or the hard part. I actually like it really because I'm learning something. So, some general tips as you work through this part. In the last video, we went over a variety of resources that are available to you, many times for free. As you do the research, remember to focus on your lesson. What are you trying to teach? Why is this like that? I personally recommend using multiple sources when possible and citing those sources. Avoid just simply copying and pasting what you find on Wikipedia or anywhere else for that matter. Your lesson should be an accurate but non-technical explanation of what visitors will experience on site. From a lesson standpoint, try to put it into your own words. You really need to have an understanding of the process or feature before you can teach it to others. But don't forget, you are not a geologist, and neither are the vast majority of folks that will come visit your Earth cache. Now, I'm sure we've all seen the description that just goes on and on with all sorts of geological jargon. I once reached out to a reviewer about this, and he indicated that you really only need 2 to 3 paragraphs. Now, I typically do more than that, so perhaps that's something that I need to work on. Assume that cachers will have no knowledge or only a basic knowledge of geology. Remember your audience. Write at the 8th grade level and translate that jargon. Geologists love big words, and this is where making your friends at your local university or geological association can come in handy. Or see if there's anything on YouTube that can help break down that concept. What about graphics? Can you find any? The whole "a picture's worth 1,000 words" applies here. And remember, some folks are visual learners. Do I need to bring any tools that I might not normally have on me? Let me know ahead of time. Waypoints of use, using waypoints, right, as necessary to ensure that the cachers stay on those established trails. And then admin notes. For the location, are there parking hours or a parking fee? What about a trailhead? Whatever I need to know. Because that's at the end of the day, what would you want or need to know about the location that you've chosen? Logging tasks. Okay, I absolutely keep these in mind throughout the entire process. When I'm scouting a location or a feature, I'm thinking, what kind of tasks are appropriate at this location? What are they observing? And what can they analyze? When I'm doing my research, I'll ask myself, okay, what's the core lesson? And how do I have them show me what they've learned? So how many tasks are required? Required is probably not the right word here. Headquarters is currently suggesting that you limit your tasks to 3 to 4. Now, what I've typically done is 3 to 5. 1 or 2 that can be answered by reading the description, then 1 or 2 that are answered through observation and analysis at ground zero, and then I typically have geocachers provide a photo, but we'll talk more on that in a moment. The guidelines indicate that visitors will use the information from the cache page along with their on-site observations to perform some sort of analysis, to observe, interact, and learn from the location. This is really key. So what am I going to put in the description? And how can I tie it to that location from an observation and analysis standpoint? Ensuring clear tasks. So have you ever gone to an Earth cache and have just scratched your head not really knowing what the cache owner wants? Don't be that cache owner. I recommend having another cacher review your tasks, or perhaps the entire write-up. Use them as a test case. Additionally, a reviewer once told me an Earth cache is a lesson, not a puzzle. Much like ensuring the questions are clear, don't make them overly difficult. He recommended that the maximum difficulty rating should be a 2. Now, the terrain rating, that's a different story, of course. So here you're going to see the acceptable and unacceptable logging requirements listed on the geocaching headquarters page. For acceptable tasks, right, answered only by visiting the site. Again, visitors must do site-specific tasks. Allow geocachers to demonstrate what they've learned. This makes sense since the Earth Cache is a lesson. Open questions are great, and they're actually my favorite. This combines that on-site observation with the lesson in the description. Feature comparison is an easy way to go as well, depending on where you are and if there's a comparison that can be made. Photos can now be required as part of the logging requirements. While they are permitted, they can only be included in as an addition to other well-developed logging tasks. So you can't just have them just to have them, right? That you've got to have other good tasks along the way. Also, you can't require someone to show their face. So a photo with a personal item has to be acceptable. Again, my methodology is 1 to 2 based on the description, 1 to 2 on-site observation analysis, and then a photo. I've never had a reviewer kick my submission back to me, at least not for the tasks. Unacceptable tasks. So it goes without saying, folks need to visit the location to log it as found. No armchair caching is authorized. Prior knowledge of geology. An Earth Cache should be a self-contained educational lesson. Put everything you need to know in the description and complement it with the site visit. No additional researching should be required. Now, you're still going to find some of those out there in the world, but the reviewers won't publish yours at this point. Again, simply put what someone needs to know in the description. Sign quoting. You're going to still find these out in the world as well. But like the additional research, a reviewer won't publish your cache if it's evident answers can simply be found on a sign. Now, does this mean you can't use a sign as the beginning of an Earth Cache? And what I mean here is the sign is providing you the lesson at the actual location. Now, translate all of that into an Earth Cache. And I don't mean simply take the words in the sign and make them your lesson. Rather, you can use it to kickstart your research. Measurements. Now, if you're going down this route, you may want to ask yourself why you're having someone measure something. Now, say you have a mineral with large or small crystals. Perhaps you have something in your description about large crystals indicating that they've had a longer cooling period compared to small crystals. Now you can combine your lesson with an observation and analysis through an open question. Note, though, that a measurement wasn't really required in this example. So here are some examples of Earth caches that I own. This one is on the process known as creep. Right? The first question can be answered based on reading the description. Notice how I want the answer in your own words. My expectation is that someone is not simply going to regurgitate what's on the cache page. The second question is also based on the description. How does water contribute? As well as on-site observation, since they have to let me know if there's any evidence of water present at the location. Same with question 3. In the description, I give multiple examples of how creep can be detected. Now they must spot some, right? That's it. Question 4 incorporates on-site observation and analysis as well. Now, that last part of the question is speculative. What I'm really looking for is an answer based off of the mitigating techniques provided in the lesson. Perhaps there are no techniques that would provide further mitigation, and that's okay for them to tell me that. For this example, you're going to see some similarities, right? Question 1 is answered by reading the description. Question 2 is answered by incorporating the lesson and by observation and some analysis. Question 3 is the same. Question 4 are all based on observation and analysis as well. So writing the description. So there's no right or prescribed way to do this. After finding well over 200 Earth caches and examining how hundreds of others were written, I think this format works really well. So full disclosure, if you look at any of my Earth caches, the early ones don't exactly look like this, but this is the format that I'm using now. Also, for those of you outside the US, the text and logging tasks must be written in the local language first. Additional languages are encouraged, but the local language must come first. Overview. Okay, so this is not one that I've effectively used in the past, but a quick paragraph on what the goal of the lesson is can be helpful. So I've seen some that say this is an Earth cache and has no physical container. While this may seem a bit odd to a veteran cacher, I've had newbies log do not finds on mine. So it seems maybe it's helpful. Depending on the location, I have put important notes up front, like there's no reason to climb over the fence to obtain the answers. If there's some sort of parking peculiarity or a crazy hike involved, you could place that here. Are there any special tools needed? Right? This is all a great place to put all that kind of information. Then I go into logging tasks. I recommend placing them towards the beginning. So this can be helpful for those using GPS receivers to read the description when they're out in the field. But the other reason is to place them up front if there are tasks that are answered in the lesson description. So that helps me key in on important information as I'm reading. The geology lesson itself. Okay, so here's the meat and potatoes of your description, right? You want to highlight what's unique or interesting about the location. This is where your research on the geological feature or process goes, right? Use those graphics if you have them and if they're appropriate. Remember, again, some folks are visual learners. Admin notes. What do I need to know about ground zero, like park hours or those fees, right? Again, this is where you would put that. Sources. So need to indicate your sources are included, including images and logos that you've used. You should probably get permission for those. Additionally, sometimes you're going to see a quick note of thanks to specific people or the land manager. I don't generally do this, but others do. It's really up to you. So what I do is write everything up on a Word document. If I'm pulling information off the internet, I'll copy and paste the pertinent information for use later, including where I found it, right? What's the URL? Obviously, it's not going to go in my final product since I'm going to take that information, my research, and I'm going to put it in my own words. But this helps me keep everything straight and helps me later when I'm writing the description. So the submission process itself. So you found your location, you've secured your permission, you've researched, you've developed your tasks, and you've written everything up. Now it's time to submit. So the submission process itself is the same as other caches to a degree. You're going to determine and provide difficulty and terrain rating and the cache attributes. And of course, you'll provide your description. The differences in the submission process are proximity requirement. So you can have several Earth caches within 0.10 mile radius of each other, but they do need to be distinct and separate lessons. Now, I own two in Georgia on weathering, and they are right next to one another. Depending on how close you zoom in, the map pretty much overlaps them. One could have argued that I could have combined them into a single lesson, but that's not how I chose to approach those lessons. Another difference is the reviewer note. You'll need to provide the answers to the login requirements and the contact information for whoever gave you permission. I tend to over communicate to the reviewer about this, including my time and date of the contact. So once you hit submit, it will not go to your normal state community reviewer. It's going to go to a GSA, specially trained reviewer. And their review process can take a week or longer for that Earth cache to get published. Now, in my experience, it's never taken that long. I think my shortest approval has been literally published in less than 12 hours. This does not happen to me every time. The bottom line, though, is to be patient. In the US, there are only 4 reviewers, and all of the reviewers worldwide, they're all volunteers. Really, at the end of the day, having a solid lesson and solid tasks makes their job much easier and gets your Earth cache published much faster. So, according to the GSA website, 60% are published first time around, which means that the other 40% are returned for corrections. Again, most of mine have been approved quickly, but I've had 1 or 2 that have been kicked back to me for some sort of wording change. The reviewer provided me, though, with the feedback that I needed, and then I simply made my changes and submitted it back to them, with the issues fixed. So I worked with them. That's it at the end of the day. So, not gonna lie, getting an Earth cache published feels fantastic. You've put a great deal of time and effort into this, so sit back and enjoy the moment, and hope wait for those geocachers to send in their answers. But once it's published, does that mean you're done now? I mean, there isn't a container to be muggled, right? There is a degree of maintenance that occurs even with Earth caches. Reviewing cachers' answers, right? That's probably the bigger one. You should review answers to ensure cachers are providing you with the right answers and photos if required. You should also check to ensure that they didn't have an issue or problem. Of course, conditions for your location can always change. Ultimately, you're responsible for taking appropriate action if something changes regarding access, permission, or some other concern. Alternately, if you've placed one in a location that's inaccessible for part of the year, it might be smart to disable it during that time. So I don't typically place any links in my description, but if you do, occasionally you may want to check that the link is still functional. You'll probably hear about it by those logging your cache, but you may not. Adopting out your EarthCache. So this is a bit of a new one. Headquarters has started archiving EarthCaches whose owners have been inactive for more than 5 years. That's probably not anybody here if you're just now getting around to writing an EarthCache. But at one point in my life, I hadn't geocached in about 3 years, but I was still monitoring my EarthCaches. My recommendation would be if your geocaching is starting to slow down, perhaps think about finding someone to adopt your EarthCaches. If needed, let me have them. I'm happy to adopt them. So you've probably seen other geocaching profiles that show some level of EarthCaching mastery. GSA has divided them up into 4 categories as you see here. The different categories reflect the number of EarthCaches that you found and in different locations and the number of EarthCaches that you've developed personally. So go for that platinum status. For this one, I found the 3L principles concept years ago, long enough that I really couldn't tell you my source. These principles are similar to a quote that you see here that I found by Blue Raja, who is an EarthCache forum moderator. The 3 principles are location. Get your location permission. Obviously, that's going to be key. Lesson. Keep it simple. Eliminate the jargon, use your own words, and perhaps add some graphics. And then logging. Ensure the questions or tasks are understandable and clear. Remember, on-site observation and analysis are key. Take these into consideration, and as Blue Raja puts it, you'll have it made. That's it. Congratulations, you made it. Again, this video focused on researching your topic, developing logging tasks, putting everything that you've done together, and submitting it. The whole series was designed to help show you how to break the process down into those smaller pieces, and then, of course, how to accomplish them. Since it's a YouTube video, you can stop at any time to go back and review as necessary. As always, if you have questions, just reach out. I'm actually happy to help. Now, your challenge is to go out and put what you've learned to work. Go develop an EarthCache. You can do it. To help you out, in the next video, I'm going to show you how I developed one of my latest EarthCaches, so you can see the entire process from start to finish. For anyone that has previously developed an EarthCache, perhaps you have additional tips or tricks that helped you get published. I'd love for you to share those with me. I'm always trying to learn as well. You can drop them down below, reach out via geocaching.com, or you can also connect with me on Facebook and Instagram. Finally, if this video has been useful or helpful, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Now, your feedback is invaluable. Did I miss anything that I need to follow up on? Was something unclear? Do you feel ready to tackle this process? Perhaps there's another EarthCache topic that you'd like to see me do a video on. Let me know. I'll put links to all my contact information in the description below. So I look forward to hearing from you, and who knows, perhaps one day I'll find your EarthCache.